So there is a scene in here, a few, but one that I really want to focus on is the scene with the Martins, right? When they first show up, they sit with each other, and then they begin to inquire as to where they know each other from. This one, of course, this scene, of course, is directly mentioned, I believe, in the Estlin book, and it's also mentioned in a lot of other articles if you look up any about the bald soprano. And this is one of the ones that sort of started for UNESCO, is this idea that two people who know each other very well would ask each other questions, repeat the information, and sort of through the process of repetition and in a language textbook, right? You learn a language through this process of repetition and uh, and question asking, right? So this particular scene, right? What we learn is that the Martins have taken the same train. They've been in the same car. They got the train at the same station. They got to the station by going from the same house. They live in the same house. They live in the same apartment. They live in the same room. They share the same bed, right? And that they finally found each other, and they've been looking for each other for a long time, which we know is ridiculous, right? We know it can't possibly be true, but we play this linguistic game, right? And it is, again, a reminder of sort of not only the fragile capacity of language to sort of bring us together, but also that, in this absurdist play, right, we are able to sort of establish an absurd, vibe by having a conversation like this, right? Clearly, these two people have to know each other. They showed up together. They must know who they are, and yet they don't, right? And it's language that's going to bring them together. And I think this is an important point to make, in that when we understand and agree, language brings them together. Even if Mary, the maid, at the end of this particular scene sort of says that they aren't who they think that they are because, right, one of their kids has one red eye and one white eye, and the other one has one white eye and one red eye, so they can't possibly be who they think they are, and everything crumbles to bits. That again, right, language can bring us together, can pull us apart, but that it's our understanding of language, it's our understanding and use of language that basically underlies our identities, right? Without language, we cannot tell other people who we are. We may be secure in our own identity, but we can't express it to other people. If you have ever learned a language, if you are from another country and have another language, then you may recall the process of learning a language and have felt that feeling of alienation in a language when you can't tell people exactly what you mean. And I think this play shows us that we can't always say exactly what we mean. And even when we share the same language, that we may have difficulty talking to each other and figuring out what we mean. And that leads us right to the end of the play. We certainly go through another scene, the one that I'm going to talk about very last, right? The scene about, who's at the door. But the very end, right, of this play, the chaotic nature of the end of this play, again, illustrates how language can be a tool for communication, right? It's barely held on for this entire play. We start out with a conversation that just doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? That the Smiths sort of talk with each other and have difficulty communicating, but they are still capable of creating sentences and making meaning. And we follow their story, even though maybe we understand that the story is nonsensical, through the Bobby Watsons and through the process of talking about the doctor, right, who, should be going down with his own patient, but, should you heal yourself before you heal your own patient, right? Some nonsense like that, but we still make sense, right? They still talk with each other and make sense with each other. At the end of the play, language loses its meaning. The phrases begin to individually make sense, right? When people say things to each other, they are repeating common phrases, or maybe not so common phrases, but we at least understand what the phrases mean, and then we start to see the phrases making less and less sense, right? A phrase itself does not, right, even connect with its own words, and then eventually, right, sounds alone are sort of being used, and the weaponization, right, of language, the weaponization of sound, um, becomes the most important thing. The chaos of the very last scene of this play, I think, is masterful. And again, very complicated and complex, because how do we make it into nonsense when we are translating it out of another language? How do we make nonsense make sense in another language? Is there, at that point in time, are we taking it away from the nonsense? If something doesn't make sense in one language and we try to translate it, we are trying to give it meaning based on the nonsense that it is before. You see what I mean? That language kind of falls apart at that point. Um, and so we have, right, these two opposites. The beginning of the play, the end of the play, almost the end of the play, right? We of course reset and start over again at the other side, right? With the Martins doing the same things the Smiths were doing at the beginning, but we also have the scene before the firefighter comes in, right? Another important scene where we start asking the question, who is at the door? And we play a little logical game. I'll talk about that in the next video.